Sarah Miller was just 22 when her life turned into a nightmare. She was young, beautiful, and kind-hearted, but in the wild frontier, beauty could be as dangerous as a curse. Her stepfather, Earl Dawson, was a broken man. Once a ranch hand with a decent living, he had lost everything to whiskey and cards. By noon that day, debt collectors gathered outside his shack, demanding payment he no longer had. In his drunken rage, Earl dragged Sarah out into the scorching daylight. His pride was wounded, his debts unforgiving. "Serve them," he barked. Sarah froze. She couldn't believe it. Her own stepfather was ordering her to give herself to the men who came for his gambling debts. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "No, I won't." The men laughed. Earl's pride shattered. He hurled his bottle against the wall and slapped Sarah to the ground. He kicked her until she gasped for breath, then dragged her by the hair toward the riverbank. Her dress tore in the struggle. Her face was streaked with dirt and welts. The men followed jeering as Sarah cried out for mercy. But Earl had no mercy left in him. He lifted her off the ground and with a roar hurled her into the river. Sarah sank beneath the surface. The icy water swallowed her cries. Her torn dress tangled around her limbs. Her lungs filled with river water. She fought desperate to live, but her strength was slipping away. And then a shadow loomed on the bank. A horse skidded to a stop. A man leapt into the water without hesitation. His arms seized Sarah just before the current claimed her for good. He hauled her to shore, laying her down gently on the grass. That man was Caleb Carter, a seasoned rancher in his late 50s. His weathered face hardened when he saw the bruises, the torn dress, the terror in Sarah's eyes. What kind of man could do this to his own daughter? He muttered. He carried her onto his horse and rode hard toward his ranch. Inside the cabin, he wrapped her in a thick blanket, sat her near the fire, and offered one of his old shirts. Sarah slipped it on the sleeves, covering her hands. For the first time in years, she felt a trace of safety. That night, Sarah whispered through tears, "For years, he beat me. For years, I prayed it would stop. Today, he told me to serve his debt collectors. I said no. He beat me harder than ever, and then he threw me away like trash." Caleb clenched his fists, but his voice was steady. "You didn't deserve a single bit of it. Not one." But even as Sarah cried against the firelight, both of them knew Earl Dawson would not stop. He would return. The next morning, Sarah looked out at the fields, wrapped in Caleb's shirt. For the first time, she felt safe. But safety on the frontier was fragile like glass. The sound of hooves broke the silence. Earl Dawson had come back. He swaggered up to the ranch yard, reeking of whiskey. "Where is she?" he barked. Caleb stepped onto the porch, tall and steady. "She's not yours anymore," Earl sneered. "She's mine. She always will be." From inside, Sarah whispered, with trembling strength, "No, not anymore." Caleb crossed his arms. "Best ride on Earl before I lose my patience." Earl spat on the dirt, but knew Caleb wasn't a man to trifle with. He rode away, but not for long. That night, he returned with a dozen armed men and the debt collector at his side. Torches lit the ranch yard. "Bring her out!" Earl shouted. Caleb gripped his rifle. "You'll have to go through me first." The gang charged. Fists flew. Blades flashed. Sarah screamed. 2 men dragged her toward the yard. Caleb fought with all his might, but the numbers overwhelmed him. Earl laughed as he stood over the bloodied rancher. And then hooves thundered again. Sheriff William Hawkins and his deputies rode in revolvers drawn. Lanterns swung rifles leveled. "Drop your weapons!" Hawkins barked. A shot rang into the air. The gang hesitated, Then knives and pistols clattered to the ground. Earl Dawson's face twisted in rage and fear. His reign of terror was finished, bound in ropes. Earl and his gang were hauled into town. For the first time, Sarah felt the weight lift from her shoulders. She threw herself into Caleb's arms, sobbing with relief. "It's over now," Caleb whispered. "He'll never hurt you again." At dawn, Sarah stood on the porch of Caleb's ranch, the wide prairie stretching endlessly before her. Caleb joined her, his hand brushing hers. Their eyes met, not as victim and savior, but as two souls who had found hope in the ashes of suffering. Because even in the darkest valley, a hand can reach down and pull you back into the light. And on the wild frontier, sometimes that hand is all that saves you.